Hey, what's up? My name is Luke Stokes. Today is October 31st, 2018, and why that date is interesting is because today is the 10th anniversary of the Bitcoin white paper. I'm rocking my Bitcoin miner t-shirt here that my sister got me, I think back in maybe 2013 or so. It's an important day. It's an interesting day, and I've actually been thinking a lot about the entire space, the entire ecosystem, and what it is we're trying to accomplish, and all the hard work we have in front of us. I recently put out a little tweet thread about crypto tribalism and how essentially, specifically in the EOS community, but I was noticing kind of a lot of competitive language as far as like, yeah, EOS is beating Ethereum and that kind of stuff. And of course, we've seen this for a long time between Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin Core. We've seen this to some extent between Ethereum Classic. On and on it goes. And I argue that tribalistic kind of my team versus your team stuff can be a little bit unhealthy. Now, competition is fantastic. Competition is great. It's healthy. It's wonderful. We all push each other forward. That's a great thing. But when it's about me profiting or benefiting out of based on the loss of someone else, well, that's a zero-sum game. It's a pie where we're just splicing up as opposed to growing the pie. And I'm all about growing the pie. I'm all about being involved in multiple projects in the blockchain space so that we can all benefit from global nonviolent consensus. When I think about why do I get up in the morning to do work, it's because I want my kids to live in a world that is free from a monopoly on violence and the monopoly on currency creation and the monopoly on governance and law and justice and these different things. And so I'm very passionate about what the blockchain technology can bring to us, what cryptocurrency can bring to us. And this is mutually beneficial, voluntary, transparent, cryptographically secure contracts. This is ways that we can interact as a species that is not primitive, that is using reason, logic, and technology, and is a beautiful thing. And so I've been thinking a lot about that, and what I've been working on so much lately is eosDAC, which is the DAC community-owned block producer for the EOS blockchain. And a DAC, you probably know, is a decentralized autonomous community. It's a mechanism where the actual members of the community, the token holders, get to use their stake-weighted vote to vote in custodians who then make decisions on worker proposals, and those worker proposals then reward people who create value for the community and for the ecosystem. And it's beautifully simple. It's really exciting. It's something I'm very passionate about. It kind of strips away all the centralized points of failure and bureaucratic drama and positions of power that are created essentially by the control of force. So I'm very, very passionate about this project. I think it's important. I think DACs are the future for not only nonprofit organizations, but also corporations, community organizations, and importantly, eventually governments as well. That we can have competing service providers that have to act based on their merit, not based on who they know and how much power and influence they have in that regard. So I'm very excited about it, but it's also really hard. The more I think about it, the more we run into challenges. I wrote a post recently about how, as we're exploring the current legal status of a DAC, we have very real concerns where we could potentially put the custodians or even the members at risk if we don't have a clearly defined definition of how this organization is going to be looked at legally by the governments of the world today. And we don't want to put out a situation where if one person does something, the entire community could be held liable and accountable, and anyone who's basically made themselves public or available for attack becomes a target for someone who's trying to do litigation or anything like that. This is not ideal. We don't want to put members of our community at risk for that. At the same time, so what we've done to try to get around that is we're encouraging the growth of a independent service provider. And this service provider will provide needed services for the DAC in a way that legal entities can understand. And that would include, contracts involving fiat currency. That would include, eventually even, property ownership or employing different members of the DAC to do work for the DAC. And the reason why this is important is because there are some jurisdictions, unfortunately, that do not let you be an adult. You can't essentially own and control your own life, and they have to manage things for you. which includes things like employment insurance and so you have to pay taxes, you have to pay these different things because these governments of the world don't think you can take care of yourself, essentially. So, it is what it is. And so if we don't, as a DAC, take precautions to ensure the liability concerns for those situations are handled by an entity that the government can recognize, then the government could potentially come after, the entire community. And so we're trying to, put things in place so that everything is completely compliant. Everything, if someone's in a jurisdiction where they have to have, for example, employer withholding taxes and things like that, then hopefully that could be organized through the service company and everything can be completely legal, completely above board, and that can be done per jurisdiction. The challenge with that on the other side is it eventually starts to create another point of centralization, which is the entire point we're trying to avoid with a decentralized autonomous community. And that idea being, if that service entity then has influence on who gets hired, who gets to do work for the DAC, whether or not that work gets paid out, these kind of things are a concern. And they're very, very difficult to work through the philosophical distinctions of what we're trying to accomplish. Because again, we want it to be fully decentralized. We want it to be we want it to be simple. We want it to be not the bureaucratic drama that we've seen in the past. We don't want central points of failure. We don't want trusted third parties that have to be involved in the system. The beauty of what was invented 10 years ago, cryptographic security controlled by a blockchain, and the actors on that system are financially motivated to be good actors and to follow the protocol and to create global consensus, even if they're competing with each other. It's just a beautiful, wonderful, amazing thing. And so we're trying to use that technology to decentralize the world, to bring freedom to people, regardless of what nation state they happen to be born in, regardless of what economic opportunities are available to them in their immediate area. We want to open this up to everyone. And at the same time, we have to recognize where we're at today and the restrictions and the regulations and the laws that are backed by violent threats of force in the current system. So I just wanted to spend a moment and kind of unpack all that and say, one, thank you, Satoshi. Thank you for today. Thank you that 10 years later, we are still working on evolving and improving this system of peer-to-peer digital cash, a cryptographic secure system for coming to nonviolent global consensus, something that's transparent, verifiable, and hopefully in the future even more interoperable, so different blockchains can talk to each other, different projects can work together, that more and more open source principles are part of what we're doing. So we're not competing, trying to one-up the next project, but instead help the next project grow and improve and even challenge us even more to improve our own projects that we're involved in. And with that, I hope you'll take a look at eosDAC, take a look at what we're trying to accomplish, what we've done so far, the worker proposals that have already been paid out, the member client that is built, the ability for you to come in as an eosDAC token holder and register and sign up and actually very soon, hopefully, participate in that governance model and vote in custodians who then are going to be responsible for those worker proposals and how the funds of the DAC are used. And again, the challenge we're facing is making sure that we're doing this in a way that's legally long-term viable. Once this system is in place, once all of these systems are in place, the hope is we can enable DACs from every shape and form. We can have DACs that are dark, and we can have DACs that are public, and we can have DACs that are governments and nonprofits and everything in between. And that is the goal, is that we can be adults managing ourselves without threats of violence and in a mutually beneficial, voluntary way. So I'm very excited about that. Check out members.eosDAC.io if you get a chance. And also just spend a moment today and be thankful that we have solutions. We have technology that is absolutely, completely changing the world and is going to change the world, even though not everyone's figured that out yet. So it's an exciting time to be alive. Thanks for joining me on the journey as well. You can follow me on Twitter and on Steem, and of course here on YouTube as well. If you have any questions or comments about this whole idea and what we're trying to do, definitely leave them in the comments and I'd be happy to answer them. Take care. Have a good day.